I don't think much of my audience consists of moms, but if there are any mothers out there, including my own, happy Mother's Day. Don't worry, I talked to my mom and I already wished her a happy Mother's Day. I just wanted to put that in here as well. I think I'm a good son. I at least try. Rough start. Anyways, hey there, welcome back to True North Reviews. My name is Ryan, and today we are doing an episode of Hot and Cold. This is a video series I like to do where I talk about the best and worst music over the past week, the hot being the best, the cold being the worst, and some middle of the road tracks as well. This week's specific episode will be talking about any songs released between May 3rd and 9th, 2020. As always, the songs will be linked down in the description. If you want to check out any of them, they'll all be there. And if you have any recommendations for newer songs, I will be glad to check them out. First off, this week we're going to kick things off with those shoutouts, with recommendations, with some songs that I just missed last week. First up, we have How Far by the Gorillaz featuring Tony Allen and Skepta. It's a fusion of Gorillaz and grime that you don't want to miss. There's a great instrumental, Skepta kills his performance, and Tony Allen has a sinister laugh. Juliana, Calm Down by Dixie Chicks is the next song I want to talk about here. It's a breakup song that sounds refreshing and catchy as all hell. I think it is my favorite song from the Dixie Chicks for this album cycle, which there's only been two up until this point because the album is delayed, of course, but I am looking forward to that project. Moving on from there, we have Nicki Minaj featuring on the Doja Cat remix of Say So. Honestly, I prefer the original. I think Nicki Minaj, she sounds really out of place with her feature on here, and her bars are just straight up cringe. That is unfortunate because Say So is a good song, just not with Nicki Minaj. And lastly, for shoutouts this week, we have Gabbie Hanna with her song Glass House. This is yet another track from the YouTube personality. Powerhouse vocals on here, empowering, bombastic beat. I like it. Now, moving on to the hot tracks from the past week. First off, we have to talk about Stuck With You by Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber, powerhouse vocalists coming together to collaborate this week on a track that sounds so much like Ed Sheeran. I am shocked that Ed Sheeran didn't write it. It just sounds right up his alley. You have the 6/8 time signature, you have the lovey-dovey lyrics all over this thing. Also, a music video that is commemorating prom and just dedicated to that person that you're stuck with, essentially capturing the essence and the narrative that we've all been living through in the past couple months and what we've been missing in a cute and cuddly little package of a song. Speaking about what this song might mean as we roll into the summer months, I would be even more shocked if this wasn't the song of the summer for 2020. Enough said, it's a good tune. JB, he pulls up his socks from his Ed Sheeran collaboration last year. Ariana, she still carries a good portion of this track, but I think it's a solid duet that is as sweet as it is catchy. Moving on from there, we have Grow Into Love by Half Moon Run. This is like the alternative folksy rock equivalent to what JB and Ari did with Stuck With You. Super beautiful vocals and arrangement of guitars, harmonica, and brushes on the snare. Next up, we have Hero by Weezer. This is the second single from Van Weezer, and like many other albums in May, this was delayed. The tune though, Hero, what Weezer came out with this past week, it kicks ass. From the pop rock hook to the performance, Weezer just pulled out all the stops. I would also add that this is much better than the lead single that Weezer put out. I just remember that one being so forced and conventional in that lane of Van Halen that I couldn't appreciate what was missing with the Weezer touch. Fortunately though, this new song has that Weezer touch and it's back. It sounds great. July Talk are also back this week. They are pumping out the singles at this point. This is their third in as many weeks. It is entitled Identical Love. This was the song I was actually most excited to hear from the new LP, not only because it's the first of its track list, but because its title is very similar to a previous song that the band released, Picturing Love. So, of course, I was interested to see if the themes carried over to this new song, Identical Love, and it kind of does. both Peter and Leia, they're searching to get on that same page with identical love, much deeper than that digital kind of love that was explored on their previous album. Sonically, on Identical Love, I appreciate the electronic tinge, the horns. There's almost like a sad, jazzy breakdown in the middle of the track, which is pretty emotional and brooding. And once the drums kick in, that's when the momentum is truly rolling. I think the drums are the best part of the track, in my opinion. Switching gears over into hip-hop, we have Brockhampton. They have returned with a couple new tracks this past week. One is landing on the hot tracks. It is entitled NST. This is a G-Funk track that is apologetically rough around the edges production-wise. It still hits hard though. Matt Champion and Bareface absolutely steal the show. Kevin Abstract, he's a little underwhelming on this tune. I would have liked to see a bit more from him, but this tune is still entertaining to say the least. Unlike the previous track, we have high gloss production on this new song from Petras. It is called Malibu. She flaunts her vocal power on this tune. The instrumentation on here is like a slick and more modernized Michael Jackson kind of thing. Actually, the more I think about it, the quirks and the ticks from the vocal performance on here are also very Michael Jackson styled as well. Malibu, one of my favorite tracks this year so far. I can't recommend this one enough. You guys have to check it out. Next, we have Charli XCX with I Finally Understand, one of the lesser experimental pop tunes from Charli of late. She finally toned down the pop bangers that she was putting out just one after another. This time she has blessed us with a bit more of a progressive kind of song. It still is amazing though. Still worth recommending, obviously. This next track though, I don't know how I'm supposed to slide this in here without getting some backlash, but Migos with their new song Taco Tuesday. No, this is not a joke. The song is pretty funny. Despite there are plenty of things wrong with this, I understand, like it wasn't fleshed out to be longer than a minute and a half. The performance is just like phoned in, I get it. But as a novelty track, it is compelling and somewhat enjoyable for me to listen to. Maybe LeBron James will give it a listen too. And wrapping up the hot tracks this week, we have Lauv with his latest single, Love Like That. This is on the How I'm Feeling the Extras album, which the original was already long enough. It was pretty bloated. It still was chock full of great pop songs. Adding to that, obviously, we have this new jam over here, Love Like That. I hope Lauv is much more than a one-hit wonder. I mean, he might only have the one hit at this point right now, but like Foster the People, I hope he has a resurgence. Alrighty, moving on to the middle of the road tracks. These are okay, not amazing, not terrible. First up, we have Things Can't Stay the Same by Brockhampton. This was the other single from them the past week. Unfortunately, though, the two strengths that were on the first Brockhampton song I mentioned in this video, they don't really translate into the same kind of enjoyment that I get out of this new one over here. The purposely rough production and brevity, they just don't stand out. I mean, when you have overblown audio and undercooked runtime, it's not as compelling when the tune isn't as strong. Shockingly, moving on from there, we are putting 6ix9ine's newest single on here, Gooba. 6ix9ine was recently released from jail. This is his first song that he's put out since then, and I went into it thinking it would be terrible, and as much as I do dislike him as a person, there are some admirable qualities to this song. As much as it pains me to say that, the beat, the performance, especially in the middle portion of the song when 6ix9ine isn't like yelling in your face as he typically does. Trust me, it's not great, but as far as this week goes, relatively speaking, this song is decent. Also decent last week, we are switching genres to something completely different. We have Jason Mraz with Wise Woman. It's a standard and safe single from him. I don't dislike it. I've just been preferring the more adventurous and longer compositions from Jason of late. Hazy Shores by Heaps. This is the second single from local indie electronic rock group Heaps, once known as the Kents. They kind of sound like a blend of Broken Social Scene and Death Cab for Cutie on this track. Very ambient and ruminating with the atmosphere. Absolutely gorgeous and stunning. I just wish the melodies and the production were a little more fine-tuned. Moving on from there, we have Matt Bellamy with Tomorrow's World. This is the lead singer from Muse. This new track from him is super Radiohead inspired. It is really eerie to hear the piano essentially out of tune at the beginning of the song. It definitely captures my attention right off the bat, and then the song progresses through some sections of rising and falling dynamics. You throw in the trademark Matt Bellamy croons, the it doesn't really matter what he's saying because it's always a spectacle to behold. With the tune, though, I just don't think it takes me to this place that I truly enjoy or empathize with. Look, it's a suitable detour from Muse's latest synth-heavy futuristic fetish, I guess you could call it that, but I've kind of fallen off the Muse bandwagon that I was on from like the early 2010s into like the mid 2010s. Just not as much as captivating me here anymore, unfortunately. Bob Dylan is back as well. He's taking the final middle-of-the-road song from the past week. It is entitled False Prophet. This is a single from his upcoming album. It sounds very conventional with rock and roll, very laid back. Some decent vocals from the legend Bob Dylan, but by the end of the song, I feel like the tune is just so repetitive that it just becomes long in the tooth. And that goes without me listening to the 18-minute song that he put out a few weeks back. Anyways, we're going to move on to the cold tracks now. These are the worst that I heard from the past week. First up, we have Sia on the song Saved My Life. For the first time in a while, I don't enjoy a Sia single, which is heartbreaking because I think she's a phenomenal vocalist. She just doesn't suit this track with her lofty vocal prowess. The tune is also super forgettable, and the annoying I delivery of the vocals not cutting it. Also a painfully repetitive refrain. It's not good. The post-punk pioneers Wire are making a return this past week with the single The Art of Persistence, and sadly, much like the Pixies did last year, they are sounding very uninspired and dull. The latest track from Wire is a slog to get through with no emotional payoff. It just sounds like a limp and flaccid attempt to remain active. I'm not going to hate on it much more than that because it's just not my thing. And besides, we have other far worse songs to be talking about. For example, Big Slimes by Chris Brown and Young Thug, a run-of-the-mill trap song here. Chris Brown's vocals are like the only thing I can like. Now, while I say that Chris Brown actually piqued my interest on that previous track, we have the Garbage of the Week award going to these next artists, Nav and Lil Uzi Vert, for their song Status. Oh my god, this track is so lifeless and devoid of energy. I think the only thing going for it is the lyrics. Lyrics that just make me want to throw myself in front of a car. And I want it to run me over, obviously. We're going to stop things there because I want to stay alive, like the Bee Gees. Yeah, that's Hot and Cold for this week. Sound off down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of these songs. Leave a like. Subscribe if you're new in town. I'd appreciate that very much. As always, thanks for watching and have a rockin' day.